Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Matt Watson. Hi, Matt.
We got a problem.
What's the problem?
There's not enough room outside for two tour buses.
Oh, is it because there's just the studio is just full of rock stars
today?
Yeah.
There's not enough room.
Oh, man. I have a golf cart out there.
Oh.
And I lease it.
I don't think our guest wants to be shuttled around.
It's not his. Trust me, it's mine.
Okay.
And I need to borrow. Can I borrow some gas money?
He needs to park his tour bus.
All right. Well, maybe. But
maybe.
I really do. I'm just so humbled to be around such quality founders and Kansas City legends today. So let me go ahead and introduce Neal Sharma, the CEO and co-founder of DEG.
Hello.
Hi, Neal.
How are you?
Oh, man, I'm just kind of doing my thing over here. Just like, what? You guys feel really imposing. For those of you listening and not watching, they're sitting across the table from me, and I'm just humbled.
Well, I'm sorry I'm a little bit late today. I needed to get in, but the parking spot was taken by a golf cart.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I mean, I do have a spot that would fit a tour bus in it, but, you park what you park.
Yeah.
My shit's way greener than your guys, by the way. And why does your tour bus always on?
Well,
you gotta keep the seahorse tank needs.
Yes,
I get it.
Air conditioning in case I need to use the bathroom.
Well, anyway, for those of you listening, I'm going to play journalist today because I wasn't kidding about rock stars, especially when it comes to startups and Kansas City startups. We're going to talk about selling your startup today, and I don't think I could bring in two other people that, at least that I know, that could probably offer more to say about that. So first off, congrats, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Second off, I do still need gas money. So, but obviously, Matt, you've got a fairly well-known exit after being the founder of End Solutions, and congratulations, Neal, on the recent news of DEG's acquisition.
Thank you.
And I mean that.
And when was that? It was like 2 or 3 months ago?
No, end of December. So
end of December. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a few months.
Time flies.
So let's just for purposes of housekeeping here. Do you mind telling us a little bit about DEG and like what you do? And
yeah, no, I'll give you the current state. I'm sure you'll go back into the startup pieces when we were a startup, I suppose, going through everything. DEG is a full-service digital marketing agency that provides digital marketing, commerce, and collaboration solutions for a wide array of clients all across the country and the world. So our clients include, the Gap out of San Francisco. It includes, in Kansas City, AMC Theaters and Hallmark, Purina in St. Louis, Timberland in New Hampshire. So that's just give you kind of a picture going coast to coast. We've got about 350 folks strong, about 250 here in Kansas City, about 100 elsewhere, including 20 in Manila, development operation in Manila.
Yeah, there we go.
We've grown since inception, been profitable since we started the business, and the last, I'd say, 5 or so years, while we've grown by double digits every year, the last, that snowball gets bigger, and the last 5 years is when more of the scale started to occur, and we're continuing to grow. I think our compound annual growth rate is something like 30%, maybe a little more. And so we continue to see that unabated into the future. It's not easy, but...
not too shabby, man. Not too shabby. So
that's the story.
Matt, do you know that Neal and I went to the same high school?
No.
Yeah, go Mustangs.
Yeah.
Did you also go to like 4 high schools?
No,
you went
but
to 4 colleges?
I went to 5 colleges.
5 colleges?
And dude, I'm a junior now, so can you cut me some
slack?
I graduated from high school, though. Yeah, go Mustangs, right? But I believe Neal is a year younger than me.
I am.
Yeah,
I am. And in fact, actually, my senior year, I wanted to play Ferris Bueller, so I left. I went to Northwest, so it's 3 years north. And first graduating class of Blue Valley Northwest. So.
Yeah. So I've actually inadvertently kept up with some of Neal's progress over the years from my friend Guy, who you know.
Yeah, of course.
He'd go to Royals games with me and stuff like that, and he'd sometimes be like, "Man, ever keep up with Neal Sharma? Because he's killing it, and he literally is. So, okay, so you two masters. There you go. You get to share that today. Matt got a master's award, and so we have to call him Master Watson. But
yeah,
judo class.
He wishes. Yeah, but so you guys really are, and I mean this like. You guys have achieved some legendary shit here in Kansas City, and thank you for everything you've done here. But I think a thing that would just be an awesome thing to talk about today is some of that. Like, you know, everyone starts their startup. Let's be realistic, man. We all have a dream. You want to cash a big check. Yeah, we want to make a difference along the way and do some cool stuff. But on some levels, you know, you think about the check, right? I mean, is that fair?
I'll let you answer that one first.
It's not necessarily
honestly,
why you started the business, but
for me, it was never about the money. Honestly, it was never about the money. It was
we've talked about that before.
It was about solving the problem, helping our customers, building cool shit.
Right.
You know, some of my business partners wanted their name in lights. They wanted to ring the bell at Wall Street. It was all about them. Had huge egos. They didn't give a fuck about anybody else.
Right.
It was all about them. I didn't care. None of it mattered to me.
And I'd second that. I mean, I think we used to have conversations about enterprise value at some point along the way, and I don't think that it was the driving force of the business and isn't the driving force of the business. I think we look at money as a collateral outcome of doing a good job.
It's the score.
Yeah, it's the score.
Yeah,
right.
and so I think for us, we used to say, I mean, I'd end the meetings and say, look, the best way to build enterprise value is just to build a good damn business. And the best way to build a good damn business is to do what Matt just said, which is really focus on the customer, focus on the problem, and solve it. So if you got kind of your head in that spot, it sounds cliche, but it's true. The money is an outcome of that. And certainly you do get, it'd be unfair to say there aren't times when you start to talk about what kind of value is being created or not being created when you look at the scoreboard, right?
You can't really help but be aware that it's there.
Totally.
Right.
But nobody ever plays any game looking up at the scoreboard throughout the course of that game every day.
At least nobody
every
that's
point.
good, right?
One of the interesting things that happened at Vin, like 2 or 3 years before we sold it, is nobody really cared all that much about stock and equity and what the company was worth or any of that until somebody started thinking that it was worth something.
Yeah.
And then everybody was ready to slit each other's throat to get more of it.
Yeah, no, we
amongst,
didn't.
like, partners and, like, all that sort of stuff. Like, all of a sudden people were seeing dollar signs and then it changed the whole game.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because we, thankfully, I think, escaped a lot of that noise in terms of how people felt about it. But you are absolutely right. We do share in the experience where nobody really stopped to pay attention until someone started to wonder what it was worth.
Yeah.
And in our case, it started to happen when a lot of our competitors, both smaller and bigger, started to get gobbled up. And we would see them get gobbled up. And so we would think, oh my gosh, they sold for X. Does that mean we're worth this?
Right.
But what thankfully didn't happen was what you just described, where you know it got a little bit.
You get a line out your door of people wanting stock options or this or that, or like business partners that somehow think they didn't get enough equity, or like all the problems.
I've heard all of that. We know. Look, we have about a 95% retention rate in our business. We've had north of 90 for as long as I can remember.
For clients or employees?
Employees, our revenue retention is north of 100, but I think in terms of our associates, so the culture at DEG is a very, very, very huge part of our story. Continues to be a part of our story.
And when did you start DEG?
So we started it. Technically in 1999, but
so that was a while ago.
Heck
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
But really, our first real year of business was the year 2000. We started out of grad school, and me and a guy I was sitting next to in class one day got in trouble talking about business, and the professor sent us an email and said, "I'd like to talk to you both about the proper behavior in class." And at the break, I bumped into the guy who I was talking to in class, and I said, "Hey, are you going to go see the professor?" And he says, "No, I'm not going to see the professor. We pay these people." And I knew I liked him. Like when he said,
"You have a good point."
Yeah, I was like, "It was right." He's like, "You're getting an A, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You're getting an A, yeah, okay. Everyone's getting an A." So it's like, "Why do we have to go do this?" And not unlike our high school days, I was the student body president.
I was not.
Yes.
He said he wanted to.
Not unlike
me
you and our high school
not,
days.
I
was the student body president in MBA school too, and so I felt really compelled. I said, "Hey man, I'm the this, and I'm the grad assistant to the dean. I got to do all. We got to go. Will you come with me?" And he agreed. And then I definitely knew I liked him. And somewhere in the middle of getting yelled at and by that professor, we decided, screw it. If we're going to get in trouble for talking about business in business school, might as well go start one. And that was kind of the genesis of the whole thing. And he and I, and then the guru at the University of Kansas School of Business, who's he has like 5 degrees, all computer science, electrical engineering. He was our first technical partner. So the 3 of us were the co-founders. Our first employee, his dad invented the boogie board. And
nice.
So if you've ever boogie boarded on a Morey boogie board, Tom Morey's the inventor of that, and his prodigal son, Sky Morey, is our first employee, and he was the kind of antithesis technical lead to Singh, who was the guy we co-founded the business with. Singh has got 5 degrees. Sky doesn't have any. He's like, well, he's not even a junior.
It's okay. You can say
it. And so
you're uneducated.
No. Well, no, just not post-secondary education. And so Sky was our first employee, and years later we made him a partner.
I'm finding you. Hang on.
Oh, there it is.
Inappropriate. Foul.
No.
Foul. Sorry.
And then we made him a partner, and then we added our head of sales a couple of years later as one of our partners. And that has been, besides the angel investors, the only people that ever had equity. We wanted to tie our people into the long haul. So we built both a short-term incentive plan and a long-term incentive plan that really tied people into the long-term success of the business.
So all of them have worked the company for like 18 years, 19 years?
Yeah, so Sky's been there the entire time.
Wow.
Then Dale, Singh, and myself, of course. Jeff came 2 years later, so he's 16 years in.
Wow.
And the other thing I'll tell you, again, just we never once voted shares among the 5 of us. Never once. Never. Still don't. So meaning Dale and I could have always outvoted the other 3 guys. Never once did that. We never voted 3 versus 2. We always fought for consensus. And so sometimes you had knockdown dragouts, which we did. But we fight like brothers. We love each other like brothers. And we built our friendship throughout the course of the business. And so I think that's been a big part of it. So when it all started to happen, there was a motion that is different. You can start to be more longitudinal about looking at your business when you're not worried about the exit or anything like that. So you just basically focus on building a good business, and like shit doesn't go right, and it doesn't go right, so fine, we'll figure it out next time as long as we're a little bit better off, today than we were yesterday, and focus on being better tomorrow than we are today. And we did that. I mean, that was really it was that earnest. It is that earnest, and that's exactly how we built it. As Matt points out, when it starts to get into sort of starting to understand what your value could be, and by the way, you never know what your value actually is until you're in the process, right? But when you start to understand what your value could be, what ended up happening that was a little different was, the way I describe it typically is, you swim more like, more like a shark or something real smooth. You don't disturb the top, or maybe in the early days you like a duck. It's a little bit smoother on top, but you're working your tail off with your feet, underneath the water. But you're not making a ton of waves. You're not thrashing at all because you figure, if I didn't get it done, I'll work on it tomorrow, and I'll work. We'll get it done, and we'll be better tomorrow.
Is this why you have a seahorse, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So that's how it is. And then what ends up happening is when you start to see the brass ring or whatever, like when it's right there and it becomes a little bit more known. We did go through some thrashing. It wasn't infighting. It wasn't any more argument than we would have had anyway about how best to grow the business. And again, we've never once voted against each other or at all. But you get a little thrashy. You get a little bit like, oh man, it's right there. And so even though you're doing well, and by that time, by last year we were doing fine. We had a great lifestyle business. It was generating great profits. We were buying companies. Which is a part we can talk about if you want to as well. And so we were learning a ton and doing great. But boy, you see liquidity, a bigger liquidity event right in front of you, and it's very hard not to thrash a little bit. And so I do think there was some of that thrashing, because what ends up happening is longitudinal time that you think about growing your business shortens immediately. And you're like, oh crap, it's like right there. And so you start to we didn't do anything different. We kept long-term decisions, but psychologically, you are thrashing. You're wondering about things.
Well, Matt, your story involves some thrashing, but it's for different reasons. You talks about like Devoting. Mm-hmm. You actually had an issue with that at one point, right?
Yeah, because early on we merged with another company, and so there were 5 principals, owners, and the problem we had is the company structure was set up with a supermajority. So all 5 had to agree for anything to happen, which makes it nearly impossible once somebody starts disagreeing.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that created a bunch of problems for us, and we worked through it and had a bunch of legal challenges, and one of those 5 people went away, and we eventually bought out all those people, actually. All those other people actually got bought out at one point in time, and then I had some new partners who came in later. But yeah, I had all sorts of issues with partners and disagreements and whatever. And when I started the company, I was 22. Right?
So was I.
So,
Matt was selling cameras at Sears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say I'm like 26, 27 years old. We bring in a new CFO. All of a sudden, he thinks I'm just a dumb programmer.
Yeah.
Like, literally, he's like, I can hire any programmer in the world to do what you do, Matt.
Did he actually say that?
Oh, yeah. No,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That was his attitude towards me. And he was our CFO. And he was, as we were doing different things, talking about raising capital, all this, he would have done anything to slit my throat and take part of my stock.
Holy crap.
It's like I said, man, different story, right?
And I built the entire product, the company, whatever. But for him, it was all like a money grabbing, stock grabbing, equity grabbing thing. He didn't put any money in the company, but he was trying to figure out how to get as much stock as he could.
You mentioned,
life's too short for that shit.
You mentioned your original founding team.
Yeah.
Matt's dad was employee number 1.
That's amazing.
And technically still is.
He still works there, and he never had any equity.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah, so that's a little
That's
different.
the biggest mistake
like,
I ever made, is him not getting any equity.
So
He's got you as a son.
So there you go. You got to cut. And Matt, that is a dividend all unto itself. Yeah. I like to identify with your dad in that regard. I feel like I cash those dividends all day, Matt. Anyway,
But
He's still asking for gas money for his electric golf cart. So
hey man, I'm trying to convert it. I got range problems,
my
guys.
God.
Man.
Oh my God.
No, I feel very blessed. Look, I think what you accomplish is fine, but how you accomplish it is way, way more important. And I think, you guys talked about money being a scoreboard, and I think that's the right frame of it. I also think, another way we say it is that it's choices. So having money is important because it's choices, and it gives you opportunity to make different decisions than you had before. But both of those things, scoreboard or choices, puts money in its proper context. It makes it a facilitator of the point, but it doesn't make it the fucking point.
Right.
And I think when you get folks, like it sounds like Matt's partners, your partners
Yeah,
were.
they had one for sure.
That is the only thing they're focused on, and life is too short to grab at that kind of thing. It works out for only a small percentage of people that have that frame, the frame of his old partners. It works out for far more predictably the people that are not looking at money as the primary point, but looking at something that has a higher order of purpose. Every new associate that joins DEG sits down with me within the first month of their employment. We've been doing this for 9 years, and we go through what we believe in, what our values are, and we do that for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Right now, are those different in each situation?
Yeah, we change them.
Corporate values?
This is literally.
But that's a real question. Because different people have different values.
No.
Just talking about the company
I'm just
culture.
what we stand for and why we stand for it.
What are a few of those things that are high up on the list?
Yeah, we believe in fostering a well-rounded work environment. So I'll give you an example. That used to the first draft of that, and we had a committee draft it. So about 2010, what we did was we had 35 people or something, and we hired 5, and I thought, holy crap, I'm not, this is going to get too big. I'm not, we got to figure out why we're special, because we had already been in business for a while. And that's going to get too big. I'm not going to be a part of it, which was such a joke, because that's not true, and it took years and years for me to be less operative in the business. So we had a committee write it. We had a group of just a cross-functional group, and then we brought it to the partners, and then the partners kind of validated it. We kind of wrote it as a group, and then every single new associate from that point to now went through time to see the core values. And it's a lot of things like that. So the earliest draft used to say something like work-life balance, and I realized that is actually not what I believe in, and I got to believe in these things too, because to me, to have a home life and a work life as 2 separate lives seemed like radically crazy to me. And my wife or girlfriend at the time was working in a place where it was like pencils down at 5 o'clock, shift change, parking lot, that kind of thing. And I didn't want to have that kind of experience. I couldn't live in a place like that. It's nothing like the startup was and that we were.
I'd have a hard time with that.
It's no way to work. So the way we put it is we say we want to have a well-rounded life, which is to say, look, you have to eat 3 times a day. Do you have an eat life? You have to sleep 8 hours a night. Do you have a sleep life? No, you just have fucking life. Life is just a 24-hour experience, and we want our folks to have that 24 hours chock-a-block full of interesting experiences at work, at play, with their family, with their friends, sleeping, eating, whatever. And you can't have a well-rounded life like that. You can't have interesting experiences like that if you're at work all the time. You just can't.
Everyone has a different set of needs in their personal, professional, and physical life, and like what might make you happy might make me miserable.
Totally,
and
right.
So it's about
you
being aware of
and
that.
having a well-rounded experience. So in our case, we want people to have a well-rounded life. You can't have a well-rounded life. You're at work all the time. So we get to the same idea that you're not there to work people to death, because then you become an effing bore. And I tell them, look, I know plenty of trust fund babies too that don't work at all, and they're effing bores too. Anybody who has like a single, take on life, and doing one thing, they're boring, right? And so have a really interesting life, and so we call it, fostering a well-rounded work environment. We talk a lot about, how do we, so our greatest pride is a job well done. So how are we really craftsmen and women, right? How are we focused on, making sure that the work that we do, just the intrinsic value of the work that we do is of value. So anyway, those are all the things that we talk about. But back to money really quickly. It's not written as a core value, but in that session I tell them, you are not here to make a rich man richer. That is not your purpose. You didn't come to DEG to make a rich man richer. We built this company to be a vehicle for our fulfillment. Certainly it's delivered all along the way. It's not only at the end, but all along the way. Well, why can't it be a vehicle for yours too? And why can't you use it as a platform for you to accomplish the things personally and professionally you wish to accomplish? And that's how we look at it with our folks. And we, honest to goodness, believe that. So it takes money and it puts it in its proper context. Money is the enabler of that kind of stuff happening versus money being the point. When you get, it sounds like partners like you had, where it's like focused just on the money, then all sorts of bad decisions get made, and short-term decisions get made, and all sorts of treatment of people get to be.
Yeah.
You get a guy who built the product and you tell him, well, anybody can do this.
So Matt Watson.
Well, anybody didn't.
Matt Watson once said to me, "You're not here to make a rich man richer," and then he stole my money gun.
Yeah.
Like, I got it back eventually, but that's a different thing, right?
Well, and then I did put hundreds in it one day.
That was actually fun.
That was a good day.
And then you took them away and you brought like a bunch of
away.
There's like a bunch of dirty ones in there.
Yeah.
And there's a $2 bill in there somewhere. Like,
if you catch the $2 bill, you're really lucky.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still on the topic of selling a startup now. Matt, and we'll throw this your direction first. So when on the way to actually doing that with Vent Solutions, you weren't actually trying to sell the company. You were actually trying to raise some money, right?
Yeah. So the company started in 2003 and never really raised any capital of any kind. We helped pay the bills with our own personal Visa and MasterCard and stuff like that. We sold a small part of the business for like $100,000 or something along the way. One of our friends that was an owner, one of the owners put in like $100,000. Like that was it. That was like the only capital in the history of the company. So around 2008, 2009, 2010, we were growing very fast. Like, there were months we were increasing monthly recurring revenue by like $200,000 a month, which is a lot.
Yep.
And you can't budget for that. You can't forecast for it. Like, you've got a new dumpster fire every month and you don't even know where it is, right? It's like everybody always says they want to have more customers they know what to do with. We had that problem and it was fucking terrible because we had 50 salespeople that took phone calls all day long, mad from people they had previously sold because we couldn't install the shit fast enough.
Yeah.
And then our implementation team was like in tears in the fetal position, and our support team is dealing with angry people. Like, it was just not a good situation to go sell your product to all these people and then you can't deliver it.
Yep.
I mean,
it doesn't sound like a well-rounded work experience.
It was bad.
No, and most businesses at that point in their histories don't die because they starve; they die because they choke.
We didn't have the capital to go hire, all the support people we need, all the implementation. Like, we couldn't get ahead of the problem. Like, I could go hire somebody now, but it takes them 90 days or whatever to be trained and all that. Well, then the problem's even worse in another 90 days. Like, it was never ending. Yeah. So anyways, we tried to raise capital in like 2009, 2010, which was, we were in automotive. Two of the manufacturers went bankrupt. The stock market was shit. Automotive sales were down like 30% from where they were or whatever. Like, it was not a good place to be. So we just had to get through it. We had to work our way through it. But I think it was like 2010. We got an offer from actually a company here in town that was going to do like mezzanine debt financing, and we ended up not doing it. And the company had grown like 40% while we were going through that process. And we're like, we'll just restart the process. So we just basically restarted the process. We're like, the company's worth 40% now more than it was when we started this damn process. And we were just looking to raise capital. We thought the company was worth like $80 million, which seemed crazy. But we were doing $30 million a year in revenue, around that ballpark. And we were hoping to raise like $20 million, $30 million, something like that. And then a lot of the founders and owners were going to take some money off the table, and we'd put some more, fuel into the fire and take this to the next level.
Yeah.
And ultimately we had a couple people offer us like 100, 105, 110 million. And we're like, holy shit, this is crazy. We're going to have to do this. And,
But just to like clarify that, you were trying to find investors,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're like, people are like,
Yeah.
oh, so if you'll take this check for $105 million, we'll just take this whole thing off your hands.
Yeah, and one of my friends who was one of the owners, his dad like famously said, he's like, at some point in time, it's enough money. You take that fucking money, take it.
Yeah, we're
Like,
going to talk.
it's a lot of money.
We're going to talk about that soon, but there's a
You just take it.
there's a funny part, and you had this every day.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah.
me every day.
It was crazy when we did the whole process, right, where we went through and we used a firm that helped, like an investment banker, to help sell the company. And we went and talked to like the KKRs and Excel and all these different people in California and Boston, and we went through all of that stuff. And it was funny, we had this joke, and it was like every day, because it seemed like every day we had a better offer. It was like, oh, the company was worth 80 million, then it was 85, and then it was 90, and then it was 95, and then it was 100, and it was like, it was insane. It was
literally
it
answering
was,
the phone. They call each other, and his business partner just be like, every day.
every day. I mean, it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And
These are problems that are way worse to have than my electric to gas problem in my golf cart.
one of the craziest things we ever did is one of my business partners, he was more of the CEO and I was more the CTO, but we actually went to California and met with one of the VCs, and the whole reason we went is to tell them, like, we didn't understand why your offer was so low. You had the lowest offer of all these different companies.
But did they?
But they had the highest offer. and next thing you know, like 2 weeks later, they upped their offer like $5 or $10 million. And it was like every day.
That's
it was
why investment bankers.
It was the craziest thing.
Yeah.
And actually, funny part of that story is one of our partners, we owned a little plane. It was a turboprop plane, and we flew it all the way out there to San Diego, and then we had to fly from there to San Francisco. And funny story, our pilot forgot to put our luggage on the plane.
Wow.
So we fly into San Francisco and realize we have no luggage. And funny story, talk about rich people problems.
RPP.
Oh my God. We go to check in at the hotel, and we tell you, like, oh, we lost our luggage. Is there like a Target nearby? Like, where do we go? And he's like, oh, what airline were we on? We're like, oh, it was our own plane, our own pilot. He's like, never heard that one before. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, we roll into San Francisco on this, expedition to sell the company with no clothes and meeting another VC the next day. And
with your
went to
valuation
Macy's.
seemingly going up every day, literally every day, but all you have is the clothes.
We roll into Union Square and Macy's and have to go buy some clothes the next morning.
So, and
it was quite a journey.
And I want to get the similar approach pattern to you, but don't take it all the way, because I have a very specific question about like when that offer comes.
Yeah, sure. No. So comparable in the sense that we didn't really have any real equity in the company for pretty much the entire history. We went out to four angel investor groups, but really 3 of them were just individuals. The last one was a group. Basically, when Dale and I, who's the guy I co-founded the business with, realized we would not be able to hire Singh, who actually had a job at the University of Kansas, and we were just students and had a kid, and he's 10 years older than me, and I was 22, he was 32, and he was like, look, I can't leave, I got benefits, we were like, well, we got to hire him. So we realized we wouldn't be able to afford hiring him, so we went out to Dale's dad, who's a successful entrepreneur, and Dale's dad's business partner. And then I had met 2 great entrepreneurs through just being the student body president at the University of Kansas MBA school. $75,000 a pop. That was it. and they took a decent chunk of the business, not a big chunk, but it was a hell of a deal, and that was the only equity. We never really spent a dime of it. Like it gave Sing some assurance, and it gave us feeling all right, but we never really.
That was the only time you guys. That was the only incoming money other than sweat equity.
That was it. And then years go by, and we're big partners still to this day of Salesforce.com, and so we're one of the largest partners in the world for them. And we were really growing our business pretty aggressively there. We were with a company called Exact Target. That was who we were the biggest partners of.
They're in Indianapolis.
They're in Indianapolis, right? Great friends with them. They're great folks.
They were partnered with one of the 5 schools that I went to, Mount. So that's how I know who they are. Kelly School of Business.
And they ended up selling to Salesforce. And so we realized we went from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a much bigger pond. And so Salesforce Ventures said, we really want to make a bet on an agency, which is kind of how we were positioned. And we want to invest in you guys. And we thought, oh, that's going to be awesome. It's going to help us get access. It's going to help us get, cover, armor from, all the bigger players, the Accentures, Deloittes, and that kind of thing.
Were you concerned about that?
Oh, for
when you
sure.
say armor, what did you need armor for?
Competitive armor. If you're a Salesforce venture-backed company, at least you can say you're part of the family, right? It's a little bit like a ability to sort of say, how does a small fish in a big pond, right, with a bunch of behemoths, try to look a little bit bigger, and you can say you're backed by Salesforce Ventures. So we never even needed the money. They gave us $1 million. We didn't need the money. What we needed was that, right, the affection, the armor, and the access, and that's exactly what we got. So that money also was never really materially spent. We didn't need that cash, right, and even in the first go. And that was it. So that was way long. That was like 14 years later. So our cap table is pretty simple and straightforward. Our investors had never, and to this day, have never once met in the same room. So we would have, membership meetings, and we'd just do it by proxy. And hey, we're doing pretty well. Here's everyone's distribution check, and we'd keep going. And so we made it much simpler. I think we were honest and straightforward about things, and we didn't try to get too clever. And this is who we were, and we grew it, I think, simply that way. And so when we entered the process, the only reason we entered the process was because we started to see we had all of our larger competitors get bought up for strategic values and exits that were really substantive by Accentures and by Deloitte and by the big global consulting. And then we started to see our smaller competitors get gobbled up. And then we kind of looked up from our work and we're like, are we missing? Like we must be missing something strategically here.
So you mentioned this earlier, but now, how long ago was that?
That was, I would say that would be
years ago, or is this
no, that'd be the beginning. About a year ago, but end of 2017, early 2018. I think we started to tune in. Now,
so the signal flares up in the air at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, people are coming at you all the time. From 2012, you're getting
groups all the time.
Yeah, you're getting calls all the time. So you just ignore it, And I think in 2016, I want to say, or maybe 2015, we actually chased one down a little bit more. They called us, and we kind of looked at it a little bit more closely to learn. Just to it was kind of like a try it out. They were coming with this amount. And we're like, well, that's a lot, but we'll just try it out and see what happens. And we learned a lot. And the other thing we were doing is we were buying companies. So by that point, we had bought 4 companies, and we were doing it with our own cash. And so here you are using your own cash, your own, what you were otherwise drawing from the business, you were using to buy companies. And, over time, we were starting to not have enough cash to buy the companies we were trying to buy out of our own pocketbooks. So we took a bank loan out and, bought a company with that. And we started to realize our ability to really grow aggressively only using our own cash or debt financing is not going to work. So much in the same regard, we said our growth is going to have to be financed some other way. However it's going to be financed, right? So we had an open-ended view of saying we want to grow pretty aggressively, continue to grow pretty aggressively. We're going to need to do so with using other forms of capital. And so how are we going to go do that? And the reason we ended up, in our process, and we'll go all the way through, but we had 21, I think, in the IOI phase. So it wasn't quite every day, but it felt comparable, where you're getting a lot of people
different
interested.
offers. Meetings.
We had all the time, nonstop, right? And then you had
dog and pony show over and over and over.
Yeah, you felt like I'm a big music fan, and you felt like it's like how does Bono of U2 play Sunday Bloody Sunday in 100 gigs a year for the last 30 freaking years, and he just does. And like, if he can put up with that for 30 years, singing the same song 100 nights a year,
I've talked to musicians about that. Like, how do you solve the same passion about something like 20 years later?
Yeah.
You're like, hey, this is clearly the 10,000th time.
You still got to sing it, right? So you just do that because you love the business, so you got to keep talking about it the same way. So you keep doing it. But anyway, so we had 9 in our LOI, and we had 9 people who really, wanted to go final with us. I mean, this is after we kicked out some people, right? And we left private equity in there, not a lot, because we had at that point realized all private equity was going to help us do was get to be, call it a $120 million company, maybe faster. But that wasn't going to stop. We'd still be a boat in open water, right? So we'd be a $120 million self-satisfied Kansas City services firm, right? Look at us, look how, how successful we are. And there'll be an armada over there called Accenture, and an armada over there called Agency Holdco X, like WPP, and an armada over there called Deloitte, and they could just blow us out of the water. And were we really doing our people a service, even if we were self-satisfied being, highly profitable, $120 million outfit, boat sitting in open water. So we realized we probably had to go a strategic route to have all the benefits of rapid growth, and the cover that is coming in our industry, which is a lot of consolidation that's happening in our space. So that's kind of what was our calculus. But it was these other companies that started to do their thing that made us realize we probably ought to do ours. And we had strategics from consulting, strategics from advertising, we had private equity, and then we had this other breed, which was private equity backed strategics. So it was like a very interesting mix of folks that were all in the mix for us. And
okay, well, hang on, because I heard the word mix, and we're going to come up to the thrilling conclusion. But Neal said he loves music, so we are going to play mixtape.
Perfect.
Real quick, but then we're going to get into my big question. So, have you played mixtape before?
I have not. Does somebody have to sing?
Well, that's optional.
Perfect.
That's
Okay.
optional.
Right.
If you want to sing, you can. We will not stop you. So mixtapethegame.com, I pull a card out of the deck, I read a scenario, we all pick a song, and then we vote for who has the best answer. You cannot vote for yourself, and Watson almost never votes for me.
Got it. Love it.
First time crowd surfing. What's the song? I kind of just, like, when I think
Can I just jump in? Or
yeah.
Right? Red Hot Chili Peppers, Give It Away.
I like that a lot. I was gonna go with like a Rage Against the Machine.
Well, that's fine too.
Kind of song.
Pearl Jam,
like,
Jeremy.
Because why not? I'm gonna go with whatever that. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Because I feel like I need to.
Or Pearl Jam, Even Flow. Pearl Jam, Even Flow, same era.
Good one.
I'm gonna go with Limp Bizkit.
Oh, which
he does
the
not
whole
get my
library?
He does not get my vote.
Band? I mean, come on, you can't do that. You can't pick
Sorry,
the whole library.
Matt, you do not get my vote. It doesn't matter what he says.
Thank you, Neal. Thank you, Neal.
I'm voting for Neal. So.
I'm voting for Neal too. Congratulations, the winner of Mixtape Selling Your Startup Version. So Neal, you can dude, you want to fire the money again?
Sure.
Yeah.
You need gas money. I'll fire it right at you.
No, I want you to fire it at Watson's the one that deserves it. He's the one that deserves to get hit with that after that answer.
All right. So
let's see if it'll work.
Ready?
Yeah, do it.
Oh, this thing's awesome. This is amazing. This thing is amazing. I want one of these. How do you get one of these?
Oh, Neal.
If I end up with
Neal, I will buy you a money gun because it was worth that reaction.
If I get
right
anything from this podcast, I want this thing.
Yeah, well.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'll deliver you one, Neal.
This is fantastic.
I love it.
I love this.
Do you want all these dirty ones too?
No.
You can keep those.
There's too much glitter on them. I'll give those to DeCourse. Let him have them.
Wait, hey now. Okay, so.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Did this go off the rail? I think it just went off the rail. It's your fault.
No, it didn't.
Oh,
by the way. Oh, dude. As far as the boundaries for qualifying for the podcast being off the rail, we have not even come close.
Good.
I've got a story later. We're going off the rails.
Okay. Oh no, dude. Are we? We're going.
Yeah.
We're going into overtime like that kind of. All right, fine.
Yes.
That's fine. So, all right. So here's the thing. All right, and this is what, and I'm trying to be the best journalist I can be because I don't have the fancy stories. But I do have a money gun.
Yeah.
So, which is maybe more awesome. All right. So, Matt, you mentioned earlier, at some point, someone said to you, at some point, like, hey, you got to take this check.
Yeah.
All right. So And we don't have to get, I don't want the numbers because we're going to keep it classy. If people listen, you want to go figure it out, it's out there. All right. But, it was a lot. It was a good amount. But at some point, you get an offer. You guys both admitted you've had them before. Obviously, at some point, you maybe go home and you tell your wife, someone, it's kind of legit. They offered this. But at some point, that changes. So, Matt, in just like 2 minutes, what was when you're like, okay, this is it, I got to do it, and like what was going through your head when that occurred?
I mean, I think all along we knew we were going to do it. We were going through the process, right?
Thank you.
Damn, I got all this glitter on my hand.
I don't know if I want to touch this money. No, do you see how reluctantly I grab that? Yeah.
All along we knew we were going to do it, right? And that's it. It was honestly the funnest part of the entire ride of the business over that 8 years. Was that like 6 months? Like the business was doing great. It was healthy. It was making money. Like everything was fantastic.
So the success of the business was the fun part, not necessarily.
But the selling it was fun. Like that 6 months, the dog and pony show kind of wore on you, but it was fun, and it was like every week, it was like a new offer, do a new management meeting. Like,
meeting
it was
interesting
a lot
people,
of
and
fun.
you meet so many interesting people. I mean,
was
there are
fun.
a lot of smart people out there, and
at that point, I would imagine knowing what's at the end of the dog and pony show, it makes it a little easier to put up with the dog and pony show.
Yeah, I mean, when you like you said, you get multiple LOIs, and and that keeps like round by round, you keep weeding them out, and who has the best offer, and then you go tell them they actually have the worst offer, and all that kind of stuff. It gets real exciting because you have numbers like, oh, they offered me $90 million, or whatever the number is, and you got your little spreadsheet. And you're like, okay, what do I get out of this?
Yeah.
Right, and you start thinking about what am I going to do with this money, and it all becomes very real.
Did you have like a Tom Brady like armband?
No.
Just kind of like look at
next
it.
time.
Like,
next time.
pass,
Yeah,
okay.
next time. But it all becomes very real at that point in time. But I'll be honest with you, it was more fun. The process of going through it was more fun than when it was over. When it was over, it's kind of like you got off the roller coaster.
Yeah, you've
and you're
talked
like,
about that a lot.
Now what?
So, but I think, and we'll finish with that in a second. So, Neal, where did you get to that point? Because it sounds like you're like the approach pattern was a little different. Because Matt, you actually exited. Like you, and then you did kind of show up to work. It's kind of a funny story. Like Matt's kind of confused one day. He's like, "How long do I have to stay here?" But kind of like, where are we at? What do we do? But you are still there at DEG. Now, is that just temporary, or is that TBD?
Yeah, well, let me try to answer this question and the question before. But let me first say that the best time to exit a company is when you don't have to. So you never have a more stronger position, leverage position vis-a-vis a potential investor or buyer when you're looking for capital. And we both went to market, Matt and I, sort of saying we're looking for financing. We're looking to continue the growth of the business, which is implicitly saying we're growing, and we're growing faster than we can easily fund ourselves. And so what we need is a partner to help us. And so you start to characterize a lot of these things as partnerships, because they are, whether it's a full exit or a private equity investment. It doesn't so much matter. There's always going to be a partnership element to it. That is what your people count on is happening. And so, did I get dinged for saying partnership?
No, Matt has to donate to charity if he yawns during the podcast.
Oh, damn, I'm boring him.
But back
I can shoot the money gun at him
back
again.
Into the work culture, your office has a ton of windows. We don't have any.
It could be 9 p.m. right now.
The world could be ending right now.
Right.
We're the last people to
know. So I want to just say that because I think it's really important for people to understand. Like, if you're going to go to market and you're not looking so hot, you're not going to have as positive experience as Matt had or I had through the process, meeting interesting people and happily telling the story. Because frankly, you don't really have a happy story. But if you're growing and you don't need to do the deal, then as he points out, when you start to see what the dollars are and what they're worth, what the business might be worth to you, you hit a point where all of that kind of equals out. It's a marginal I mean, at some point there's enough, and
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and so you're
millions. It doesn't matter if it's 11 million or 10 million or 12, whatever. But it's just like a fuck ton of money.
So then you start to focus on other criteria. You've got to focus on other criteria.
And at some point, you can make a very strong argument for the fact that if you don't cash that check, that might be kind of dumb too. Like, because I mean, you're talking about generational type
you just
wealth.
take the money.
Sure. There's a lot of things you can do, and like, hey, I'm talented. I have a lot of interest. I can get some shit figured out.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is like that actually happens a little bit earlier than when you're kind of phrasing the question. It happens at the point when you have a growing and positive and successful business there's a point where, like, the market starts to tell you it's roughly here.
Right.
Now, it could be more, and it starts to get to be more as you go through the rounds of auction, et cetera, that happen. But there's a point where you're like, okay, we're probably good on the money side. That is to say, we certainly will negotiate for more with everybody because everyone's going to offer more, and you're going to try to run that. But, like, it's a marginal benefit to you, and at that point, when you start talking about wealth, there's like different breakpoints in wealth, and you're at a point where, like, okay, well, unless it's going to be a whole other breakpoint, this is kind of a marginal benefit. And so you're like, okay, I'm good here. I'm happy here. I know where that's at. Then you start to really look at other criteria, and that's what we did. Where is the greatest opportunity for the scope of the business, the original thesis for why we were going to the market to begin with? Who's going to help us grow more aggressively? Who's going to help the platform that we try to create for our people be the most successful? So where are people going to have the greatest impact and be able to succeed the best? And, all sorts of different things. Where are their relative strengths in the market? How are they doing? Da-da-da-da-da. And you kind of do a lot of just like, advantage, disadvantage, plus minus scoreboarding stuff. And certainly, dollars do play a role. I mean, but we didn't take the highest offer, right? We took a person, a group that we thought was the best fit for the overall proposition, but still plenty good in the
and
money.
who was that?
A company called Dentsu. Dentsu is the third largest agency holding company in the world. It's a Japanese-based company. It's got a monopoly a near monopoly in advertising in Japan, but their global operation is the Dentsu Aegis Network. It owns companies like iProspect, 360i, Isobar, which is who bought us, Merkle, those kinds of big agency-oriented, digital agency-oriented companies. So anyhow, so at that point you start ranking those kinds of things, and then now that gets to your last question. So so I'm here. I could be here as long as I want. It's America, as my investment banker says. So I could leave tomorrow, I suppose, if I wanted. But I've made a commitment. I'm happy to make that commitment because I'm really focused on ensuring our people, the great folks at DEG, and again, we're growing 20-30% every year, right? So there's going to be more DEGers very soon. I want to make sure they're in a really good spot and that they can use this move as just another step in our evolution to launch their careers personally and professionally and make sure they're successful. And certainly we'll make more money along the way, and that's great. I want to make sure the people that took the bet on us at Dentsu are in a good spot too, because it was not a small acquisition, and so we want to make sure they're successful too. So it gives you a really clear sense of purpose around choice creation, right? Optionality for people, and setting people up for long-term success. And
did it feel anticlimactic? Because Matt will say that. He talks about these.
It is the most anticlimactic experience in the world.
It's like the rock show is like 1,000,000 notes a minute, and then all of a sudden they're like, and now the encore, and then it's just
a 4-minute phone call.
And then no one's there.
The closing is a 4-minute phone call, and we're in this great office now. We moved into about a year and a half ago. I took our guys, all the 4 partners I mentioned, I took them back to the first office we started out of, which was awesome. And we,
that's where you did the closing call?
Yeah, and
that's
it was
cool. I like that.
It was an empty room, and so we put some folding chairs, and we had the cell phone in the middle. And as you point out, it could not have been more anticlimactic. It was a 4-minute call, release the signatures, release the funds, great. Pause, and I thought, oh man, maybe I should say something like profound. So I don't know what I said, but I said something like, thank you guys for the, whatever. Some, looking forward to the future. Something hopefully poetic.
If you had a money gun at that point.
Well, whole other thing. Yeah. And then, they said something, and that was it. And you hang up, and you all kind of look at each other, and you're like,
now what?
I think we're done. Are we done? Did that just happen? And especially after that roller coaster, because that process. Yeah. Is a crazy process.
So when you were going through that process, did you have any moments where you thought it was going to blow up?
Almost every other day.
So what kind of issues did you guys have in getting the transaction completed? Because that's part of the story nobody ever thinks about.
I can't imagine how fucking gut-wrenching
that's
got to feel.
I still have a little bit of PTSD about it. And this is actually what I mean.
I bet I'm like, for real.
Oh my God.
Dude.
Yeah. So I've talking about it after the fact, you can feel your chest kind of tighten up. I think. And I think this is what I meant by the psychological thrashing, right? Because you're like so close and you don't want it to F up at this point in the process. And so to me, it felt less like an up and down. Like a lot of people describe it as you're this roller coaster where it's up and down. It felt more like you're riding along the track, things are going pretty well, but at any time the whole track could just, crumble underneath you.
What kind of stuff's going on that's making you go, oh shit, this is going to actually blow up?
In essence, it all comes down to a lot more eyes start to look at it, and a lot more people with a different judgment than
Reps
the commercial.
And warrants.
The commercial side of the business. So the commercial side has already decided this makes sense. We're going to go do it. So
and
then
there's
that was
a potential red team there telling everyone why it sucks or don't do this.
That's the lawyer's primary job is to sort of say this sucks for all these reasons.
Identify every possible risk.
Correct. And then there's reps and warranty insurance people who can get involved. In our case, it wasn't a big deal. IT gets involved, and you've got a big entrenched business, and they're worried about all sorts of other things like that. So at any point in the process, then their boards, their board will largely, in big acquisitions, boards will approve directionally. Then M&A groups will come, the corporate dev team will come
When you say directionally, mean like, hey, you can do it? Or
you could buy a firm doing this kind of thing for roughly this range of capital and da-da-da-da-da. So then they start to operate on that. Then they got to bring the LOI deal terms back. The board's got to approve that. Then they got to bring back kind of the final negotiation, major points of negotiation back. They got to approve that. So at any point in the process, and here's the other thing people don't know. Once you sign an LOI, and I learned this through a group called Young Presidents Organization. A bunch of CEOs get together and talk about business issues. And I went to a whole M&A seminar. And, man, this guy said this to me, and it is absolutely the truth. I don't care how many options you have, and you need more than one walking into that exclusive. Once you sign exclusive, as a seller, you lose all leverage. That is the highest point of leverage you will have in the negotiation, because the only thing you can then do, if you don't like how it's going, you don't like a term in the deal, the lawyer cocks it up, whatever it might be, is you walk away. Well, when you walk away, you're back to the market, and you're not damaged goods, but you're back to the market, and you got to redo all this crap, and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
So they know this. So by the end of the whole process,
in this process, you're distracted away from running your business too. That's the
correct,
other part of this.
Correct.
I mean, well,
you're supposed to keep hitting your numbers.
On
keep
the
growing,
other side of the
stuff.
process is the same way. Like raising capital, it's like, hey, this is all I'm doing, and how am I actually going to do my job?
And by the way, you have to do a good job at the job, because that actually picks your value. Like that is what keeps your value.
Did you guys have an earnout and stuff?
We do, but again, what we negotiated, I think by and large, is I would call that earnout to be. More, it feels more like incentive than it feels like earnout.
Well, he mentioned my earnout, so our earnout was only like 6 or 7 months, and it was pretty funny because we get to past November or past Thanksgiving, beginning of December, and like so any new revenue we do isn't going to count till January of next year. Or any customer that cancels, so it's like we've locked in our earnout.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to Mike, and I'm like, all right,
and by
Mike,
the way, define the earnout, because I don't think everyone just intuitively knows what that means.
10% of our sell price was held up in the earnout. So, let's for easy numbers.
And that's there to make sure that you, on some levels, like exit like a gentleman.
Yeah.
To say
so we signed the deal in May, and our earnout was only like 6 or 7 months. It was relatively short. And basically that was to make sure that we stuck around, ran the business, da-da-da-da. And a lot of times, like, so if you came to me today and said, I'll buy Stackify for, I'll just say 20 million, I'd be like, no. But they're like, well, we'll buy it for 30 million, and as part of that, you've got to hit these numbers over the next 12 months or 18 months. I'd be like, okay, cool, I'll do that. I'll go for the higher number, and I'll make sure we hit those objectives. So we'll agree on paying a little more, right?
And for
that's
those listening,
part
that's
of the
also
negotiation.
like helps with a smooth transition and just like,
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, I can't go into all the details for our deal, but what I can say is it's a little different for services firms than it is for software firms.
Sure.
So because largely the product you're selling is are people.
Right.
Everybody's got employees, but like, when you're a software firm, the employees help support a product that is a piece of software. But in our case...
So in your case, they're trying to make sure the entire company doesn't walk out the door.
The whole thing. There's a lot of different, right? And there's a lot more value potentially to create that's created around people processes, and a lot of people-oriented things. Because services firms, by and large, are only people, right? The talent that you have in your people. But everything you just said is exactly right. I mean, there'll be typically a higher value ascribed when earnouts are engaged, because and honestly, for the entrepreneurs that are in play, as he points out, we're driven by the ambiguous, right? We're driven by the for us to be like focused on a particular, cap or something.
Yeah.
It's just like we can't even like orient ourselves that way.
And I
so
quickly,
upside's important.
I quickly realized 6 months later there was no way I was going to be able to work for the new corporate overlords. And so I went to Mike.
This is kind of fun.
After Thanksgiving, and I told Mike, I'm like, you know what? We just sold the company for a shitload of money, and I didn't care what I was going to have to do. If I have to work here for the next 2 years, whatever I got to do. So I went to him and like, how long do I have to stay here?
Yeah.
And he literally told me, he's like, dude, they abolished slavery a long time ago.
Yeah.
He's like, if you don't want to be here,
it's America.
You don't have to be here.
Yeah.
And so funny side story. So we sold the company to Autotrader.com, which is part of Cox Automotive and all this. I guess two of the executives at Auto Trader made a bet amongst each other on whether I would leave first or Mike would leave first. And Mike was the CEO. And everybody bet that Mike would leave first and I was going to stay. And so I cost somebody a $10,000 bet.
Yeah, well,
I can't believe somebody made
They
that
were
bet.
underrating you as just a dumb programmer all over.
I was the immediate
From a
flight
dumb
risk, I guess.
programmer to a guy that had a fun and interesting exit.
Yeah.
So,
but I think
still doesn't own a money gun.
In our case, yeah, it looks like I'm about to get one before you get one.
I'm gonna deliver it.
No, look, I'll say I feel really we exited a really good people, and that was, by the way, also a really important component to our pluses and minuses. I mean, there was a point where I wrote up on the board, some version of, what's the dollar amount? Meaning there was a couple groups in there that I wanted to make sure my partners are on the same page. There wasn't necessarily a dollar amount worth it to exit to a group that we wouldn't necessarily feel like we're leaving our people.
I think it's crazy. I mean, think about that. Literally sold to not the highest bidder, which is not like that. Some people will be like, why? But but done for the right reasons. So I got a huge appreciation for that.
Sure, yeah.
So I have a story there too, and then there was a couple things almost blew up our deal. I'll tell you about. So we were going to sell the company originally to one of the largest companies in automotive software. They do like
RJ Reynolds,
over $1 billion in revenue.
No, not RJ.
But they were literally like fucking Galactic Empire, Darth Vader. And none of us wanted to sell the company to them. It would have been a disaster. Like everybody hated it, but they made the best offer. And we literally, the owner who owned the whole company, one dude owned this whole thing, multi-billionaire, comes up to Kansas City. We all agree. We all sit down in principle to the deal, like we're going to sell it. And we hugged the guy. We literally hugged the guy on the deal, shook his hand, all this stuff. But we never signed anything. And so we called Auto Trader and be like, hey, we're going to sell the company to so-and-so. And they're like, no, you're not. You are not going to sign anything. We will be there in 2 days. And so they literally came in 2 days later and offered us a premium over, and we were all like the most thankful people in the world that Darth Vader almost bought our company. But here's what happened.
You hugged Darth.
But then there was one really terrible thing that happened.
It almost turned him back to the good side.
What almost destroyed our whole deal, that original company that we were dealing with, we had an integration with. About 40% of our customers use their software. And because of what happened, they sort of threatened to take our integration away, which would have fucked us.
Yeah, for sure.
Big time. That would have tanked everything.
Yeah, scary.
And that was, talk about a scary thing every single day, trying to figure out how we were going to navigate through that. Like, we told this guy we were going to sell our company to him, and then we said no, and now he holds our cards.
And you hugged him.
Right.
Yeah, that was insane. We managed to
navigate through it. It would have been okay if you
it.
didn't hug him, but when you hugged him, it was a different level.
Yeah. So then there was one other really, really crazy.
Do you disagree?
I think so. Once you hug the guy, it feels like you sealed the deal to me.
I know.
You can't take back a hug, man.
There was one other really crazy thing
that might have been
happened.
legally binding in like some states, like
Virginia.
Is that
Virginia's for lovers?
No, more like Colorado.
Virginia's for lovers. Virginia's for lovers.
Is that common law marriage?
That is binding in Virginia.
In West Virginia, it might be.
I hugged another guy, and that's common law marriage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was one other thing that really happened that's a funny story I have to tell. So we agree we're going to sell the company to Auto Trader, and so they plan this meeting, and they have like 20 people or whatever fly in, meet the management team. We get like 30 or 40 people in this giant room, and we go around the room and tell you, introduce yourself and tell them what your hobby is. So we go around the room, and everybody goes through. So it comes time to our CFO, and he says, my name is blah, 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 da, 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 da. And my hobby is masturbating.
What?
Yeah. The whole room looks at each other like, what the fuck just happened? And this is a true story. I can't even make this up. We were floored. Nobody even knew what to do from that point. And we were all like, oh my God.
I think we should commend him for his honesty, though.
Well, maybe. But talk about...
And that was the part when the podcast went off the rails.
Yeah, got it. There it is.
Thank you, Matt.
Now
you're bringing that back.
Here we are. We are now here.
But that was the craziest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life.
One of the craziest things I've ever heard.
And we're all sitting in the room like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
And did this guy just blow up our whole deal? Like, they're going to fire this guy? They think our CFO is a bumbling fucking moron now. Like we're on damage control mode. Like, what happened?
Right.
It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen.
Matt, you know me pretty well. Can you imagine the things that would have come out of my mouth after that meeting when we left?
Wait. This is the buyer side, right? The buyer side guy said that.
No, somebody worked for us.
Yeah.
It was a
Holy crap.
Our CFO.
Yes.
Our CFO said that.
Whoa. So when
Our employee.
post facto, when you were on the plane, what did you ask
It was in
him?
our office in Kansas City.
Did you ask this guy after the meeting what the hell he was thinking?
That's why I said you could.
No, I
only
have to
imagine,
I have to know. Like you had. Like,
No, yeah, we
what's the
talked
epilogue
to
of
him,
the
and he
story?
thought he was trying to be funny.
Are you kidding? That was
he
the
thought He was
defense.
trying to be funny. Yeah.
You're kidding me.
No, he thought he was trying to be funny.
So,
that is.
so guys, while we're
that
on,
is
can't make
unbelievable.
this up. I can't make this up.
While we're on the subject.
Oh my God.
No,
I don't know what I would have done.
I was gonna
Choked him out.
My hobby is podcasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So
You don't make money at this.
Yeah, same. It's the same outcome. It's really what it is it's just a lot of time spent doing something I should probably.
I thought your
not
hobby
be
was
doing and
being a head
doing
coach.
something else. That was the sex coach. We had a sex coach in here once.
When the podcast was still called Startup Hustle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, she owns a business. She wants to be
There
an
you go.
influencer and whatever.
There you
And
go.
by
Cool.
the way,
Yeah.
there's never been more times in the history of this podcast where I've had to preface something where I said, hey, I'm asking for a friend. So Neal, asking for a friend, what would you like to tell our, and by the way, thanks for coming in. This was fun.
This was really interesting.
I really,
I learned about something called the money gun.
Well, we really are. We're going to Startup Hustle and Full Scale are going to bring you a money gun, mainly because I want to see your office and I want to see what's up, and I drive by it anyway.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
And really, dude, thank you for your reaction. I got that on video, and I will send that to you too. That was priceless. And Watson, your face. So if any of you have not yet been to our Instagram page, oh yeah, that's going to be up on it. So at Startup Hustle Podcast. But Neal, give us a couple words of wisdom. Tell the future hopefuls, the people that want to fire the money gun in their world. You dropped a lot of wisdom and great advice. But what do you want to tell people on the way out? Anything. It's open mic.
Yeah, no, look, I won't be very pithy about it, but I'll say that I think that you've got to be driven by something a little bit greater than money and greater than yourself. And I don't think that's the same thing as passion. That's a discussion for maybe another podcast. I'm not going to talk about passion right now. What I'm going to say is what drives you every day has to be a sense of purpose. And you may not be able to name it or describe it, but you have to have it. And in the end, if you can actually apply which, by the way, is fairly common sense business principles to that purpose, you can get to where you want to get, or you'll die trying. But it'll be a noble pursuit all the way through. So I think what I would say is that having a sense of purpose, having persistence, and making no excuses along the way is about the closest formula to whatever you might describe as success as I can come up with.
So Neal, where can our listeners and people that used to listen before they heard
that story? Holy God!
Where can they find out more about your company or any social media or anything like that?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So www.degdigital.com and at @degdigital is the company's everything, and then I'm at Neal USA, Neal USA.
Wow, you got Neal at Neal USA
early on.
I was gonna say, dude, you're like the
greatest country on God's green earth.
You're like the 9th person to sign up on Instagram. That one, congrats! Wow, Matt, you got anything to say? I gave you guys the floor.
I think for somebody out there who wants to sell their business, the key thing is just building a great business.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be the focus first. It's got to build a great business.
Right. Yeah. If you're focused on enterprise value, you won't build enterprise value. You got to build a great business, and there's no substitute to that. And I do want to end on the idea that any Limp Bizkit song is not a song worth crowd surfing.
Oh.
And by the way, Limp Bizkit is not a fucking song. See you guys next time.